So this video is about the 30 Enochian Aethyrs, which is the basis for the course, because the 19-day working is only 19 days of this 36-week course. So you probably want to know what those Aethyrs are all about. What on earth are the Aethyrs? Why are we going through them? What do they do? What don't they do? Stuff like that. So I'll just start off with what the Aethyrs are not. And this is a bit of a pet peeve of mine, I have to warn you. The Aethyrs are not the tree of life. The Aethyrs are not just another way of stating the tree of life. The Aethyrs are just not the bottom three or Malkuth. No. Now, in the sense of both of them are maps of the universe, the alchemical universe, going from the most dense to the most ethereal or least dense. In that way, sort of, but they don't line up. It's not like such and such Aethyr lines up to Doth. I know everybody likes to say that and say, well, you're going to meet your HJ in such and such Aethyr, or you're going to run into the Clipoth in such and such Aethyr, or no, not necessarily. So I've done a bunch of group Enochian Aethyr workings where we go through them. And I tell everybody, don't, and I recommend this to all of you as well, don't read others' experiences on the Aethyrs. That really is limiting, because then you sort of bias yourself. Even if you forget what you read, this, in the back of your mind, there's this thing of, I'm going to do this in this Aethyr, and that in that Aethyr, and this one's going to go good, this one's going to go bad. So, what I did is when we did a bunch of group workings, I told everybody, don't read on the Aethyrs. You know, so you have a clean slate, and so you can experience it better. We called the Enochian entities in, we called the Aethyrs in, we weren't having any trouble. We didn't need to read somebody else's experience. We have enough of our own biases anyway. We don't need some other magicians to go along. So, we went through the Aethyrs. And at the end of the week, I told everybody, so this particular Aethyr was supposed to be such and such by such and such author, and it did not line up. I think maybe once or twice something might have, but not the big ones. Not the ones I was concerned about, which is nice, because you always wonder about certain ones. But yeah, so don't read what other people have to say about them, and they don't line up to the tree of life. Really, they don't, other than more dense to less dense, and it's an alchemical transformation. And as you're going through the Aethyrs, or the tree of life for that matter, adjusting my, oh well, whatever. As you're going through these Aethyrs, you transform yourself, and basically you're removing the dross, removing the matter that you don't need, in a spiritual sense. We kind of need our physical bodies, right? But you're kind of removing what you don't need, the old crap, the lead, the different terms for alchemy. You remove that more and more as you ascend on these different planes and in these different areas in the Enochian Aethers. So what the Enochian Aethers are, like I said, a map of the universe. Though we might, if we're talking Enochian here, we might be limiting ourselves if they just say the universe. So maybe the bigger universe, or universes. It's sort of hard to tell sometimes. The as above, so below thing really does get interesting and different when you get into Enochian. So there's two ways to do the Enochian Aethers. You start with text and move to Lil, or you can start with Lil and move to text. Text is the most dense and the mundane, and is the earth, and is divided into 4 different sections, the 4 elements. All the other Aethers are divided into 3, which I believe are the 3 alchemical principles, sulfur, mercury, and salt. Makes sense to me. T and Kelly didn't say that. The diaries did not say that, though, and I do like to specify what are my ideas and what are in the actual diaries, because far too few people actually do that. So we just assume what they're saying was in the diaries, but for the most part, most of what people say in books and on the internet was not in the diaries, unfortunately. So I do like to clarify. Okay, so we have these 30 Aethers. and you traverse through them. And there's 30 of them. Now, the whole let's all do it in a day or two, I don't recommend that approach. Certain magicians from the past could attest to that it does lead to imbalance. It's gone really bad for a couple of people who did it in a desert. It just really did not go well. Some people feel that it was the downfall of that particular magician, though magicians like to have dramatic stories about famous authors. That's just the thing, right? So anyway, I don't recommend rushing through it that quickly. More for, okay, so say you want to travel the world, see a few different countries. You can do a quick, 1 week, 2 week cruise on a cruise ship. Just stop by a port, see a certain country, a few hours, go through, get rushed through with a tour guide and a tour bus and a bunch of annoying tourists. Or you could spend a month or two in each and every country and get to know the people a bit, get to know the culture a bit, get to know the energies. It's obvious which one will actually tell you what a country's like. You just go to the port town in each country and do all the tourist things. You're not going to see the people acting real. You're just going to see the people acting how they do to tourists with too much money. You're not going to get the real experience at all. And nothing deep, that's for sure. So I don't recommend ever doing it the let's rush through them thing. Now, I have done that. I've tried it. And I've tried the let's do all 30 at once, see how that goes. And you get a bit of something, but it's nothing like spending an entire week on each one. And by spending an entire week on each one, I mean you just do the ritual at the beginning of the week, whatever weekday we choose here. We'll have to talk about that. And then the rest of the week, you and the Aethyr are just merged as part of your life as you sort of progress and be in tune with that particular Aethyr and merge with it. So it takes a back seat, but you get to notice what's going on and how each week is completely different. It's kind of intense. You can kind of do it at your own pace and your own intensity, and you can sort of dull it down a little bit. If you want to enhance it a bit, you just spend time meditating on each one and doing the homework intensely each day, and that would help greatly. Okay, let's see what else. 30 Aethyrs. So, what most people do, the popular thing to do is scry the Aethyrs, which makes sense. Dee and Kelly, how did they come up with the system? They scried it. They used a scrying ball. Kelly is a scryer, and so it would make sense to scry them. So that is one way to do it. However, my preferred way is to actually out-of-body travel into each one. Since there's a whole week for each Aethyr, you could kind of do both. I don't recommend doing it every single day. I don't feel that would be very good balance, personally, because you do need to keep up with your physical, mundane life and your other spiritual practices as well. But you could do one session of out-of-body travel into the Aethyr, and then another session which is scrying. Or you could do a split session. You could start with scrying, do out-of-body travel, and come back. Make sure you ground well when you travel into each Aethyr, whether it be scrying or out-of-body travel. Make sure you're back here well and ground strongly. Have a little something to eat, some water. Touch the ground, connect with the ground. And if you do any Qigong or martial arts or anything like that, do the Qi sinking exercises. Move everything into the lower Dantian and get that all sorted out so you're balanced at the end of each and grounded. Very important with Enochian, especially if you're ascending on some Aethyrs. It really does get otherworldly at times, so you want to be careful about this. And you want to keep track of your mundane versus your magical and otherworldly life. So by out-of-body travel, I mean read some of the older stuff by Robert Bruce. He talks about something called etheric travel. So that's one way. Or astral travel is another. I will give instructions during the actual course about how to enter into each one. Each Aethyr, fortunately, has some governors that will guide us and bring us there. We're not just sort of wandering alone in some foreign country, so to speak, not knowing the language. We have 3 guides, well 4 in text, for each ether to show us around and to teach us about it and help us learn about it. So you get to know the ethers quite intimately and live the ether, so to speak. Now, I'm going to bring us from text to Lil. That's my preferred route, and I find it quite useful. So I recommend that for this course for a couple of reasons. One, I find it to be the first way to go. And then later on we can go from top to bottom as well. But the other reason I recommend going in this route, well, just to follow along with the class, but another reason is when you're going through, if you can't continue, stopping on your way up is fine. Now, if you're going from top to bottom, stopping on your way down is not as good. What I mean is if you're doing 1 per week and doing it very intensely and you've done, say, 10 or 20 in a row, very thoroughly, and you suddenly stop, that wouldn't be as good. You'd have to find a way to continue to bring yourself further down. However, this is my opinion anyway, on the way up, if you stop part way up, no big deal. You can try again later. However, I recommend finishing, since you get so much more out of it, and it really does change you, and you get this awesome alchemical change, awesome energetic change, and it does clear a lot of blockages and channels, I find, as you're going through the ethers. Going through the ethers does actually end up being a lot more than we would think, and fortunately we have many teachers. Like I said, at least 3, well, 9, nearly, per ether for 30 ethers. That's quite a few. And they will teach us and bring us through the ethers. Oh, too bad it doesn't say how long I've been talking for each one of these on my screen. Oh well. So just for fun, I will share some what not to do stuff, because, you know, I was a dumb teenager too. Maybe there's smart teenagers out there. I was perhaps not one of them. I was too excited, thought this occult stuff was just too much fun, too awesome. So I tried some stuff that I would never recommend to anybody, even if they've been at the occult for a long time, just because it, you know, it just falls under stupid shit. No other way to put it. But, you know, everybody's done dumb things in their lives, at least I figure. And some people say it's the best way to learn. Well, I must be the wisest magician ever or something. Anyways, so I've done some silly things. One of them was I was reading far too much Kenneth Grant when I was younger. I was a teenager, give me a break. Anyway, nothing wrong with Kenneth Grant. He's pretty awesome, but maybe I was taking it a little too seriously or literally and thought, I'm going to explore the inverse Enochian ethers. The hell was I thinking? Anyway, so what I did is, I don't think I'll give much detail in case somebody thinks, wow, it's an awesome idea. But I basically went into each ether and traversed the regular portion of it, and then thought I would go the back route and see the reverse portion of it, and check out the inverted ethers. That was definitely an interesting experience. I don't recommend it, and if you like to avoid havoc around you, I recommend just not doing that. But so I did explore that and went to see what sort of entities I would meet on the other side of these ethers. And the ethers are pretty big. You can explore them. You can meet a lot. They're sort of unlimited in a way. I guess I'll use the Tree of Life as an example, though I hate to, because then people might draw too many parallels. But you know how they say that each Sephiroth has all 10 Sephiroth within it? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say each ether has all 30 within it. I would say each ether has the entire universe within it. I know it sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but I'm not. You will see. It just sounds like, or sorry, not sounds like, feels like, seems like, looks like, each ether has the entire universe or several universes within it. In other words, unlimited within it. So everything that is within each ether, but in a different way, in a different level. And I also found with the ethers So back to just a regular ether travel topic here. Is so usually when we go traveling the ethers or other places astrally or such, or even the tree of life, is that we're traveling our internal ethers, our internal tree of life. However, with much practice, eventually you'll get to the point where you do fully leave your body and go to the larger external ones. Now, it doesn't really matter, really, your first time, which one you're doing, and don't worry about it, just do it. Don't put too much thought into it, because if you're sitting there busy intellectualizing, you're kind of not there, are you? You're too busy just thinking, which does not help. So, just focus on what you're doing in the ether, and then realize the more effort you put in, and the longer you do this, and the stronger you do this, over time, the experiences will expand, and you'll learn more about it. It's sort of like, okay, I'll use the world travel thing again. So you go to a new city, and you're first there for a few days, you see a few things and a little bit of the city. However, if you go back later and spend more time, you're going to notice many things you didn't notice before. You're going to meet many people which you never realized existed before. And you'll just start to learn more and more and have a completely different experience of the place. And then once you meet some locals there, you'll have a very different experience. A mundane example is you don't get charged tourist rate anymore for groceries. But just as a silly mundane example, once you get to know the energies and the beings that rule over these ethers, you get to see and experience more and learn more about them and travel deeper within them. And they really are unlimited, each and every ether. And don't get caught up in assuming the Enochian entities are anthropomorphic. They're not. Sure, some are, maybe. But there's so many that are not. So don't get this humanocentric limited viewpoint on everything. Just go in and experience what is. For example, I've run into, I think it was, I was walking along the ground once in the ether and realized the ground was sentient, and I could feel it under my feet, and it was sentient. It was very strange, walking along a sentient ground. Not saying that the physical ground outside here is not sentient. I'm just saying it was really sentient and really aware of things, even more so than our ground here, though perhaps I'm limiting myself when I go out for walks on the ground. But it is extremely otherworldly in these Enochian ethers. So again, I will repeat, make sure to ground after each one and ground each day. And if you start to feel a little unbalanced, get extra more grounding going on. Sync your energy. A lot of energy syncing during these. Physical exercise, physical activities. Go do something extremely mundane. Find the most mundane person you know or activity you know and go do it. I guess we could all go watch a football game with our boss or something. I don't know. Except me. So, anything else about the ethers? There are various Enochian entities within each ether. Not just obviously the 3, 8, or 9 mentioned, like listed. There are obviously many, many, many unlisted. You cannot possibly list every entity in every system or every ether. It's just not going to happen. So you'll run into many, many entities, many experiences in all different shapes and sizes. And they're quite vast. So you can go in and enjoy and explore, but you probably want, not probably, you do want to keep a focus on the working as a whole and exploring the ether and actually learning instead of just sort of wandering around looking at the sites. Well, you know, some wandering around looking at the sites is good too, because we have not been there before. At least the first time you do it, you haven't. So that's a good way to learn. But you also want to make sure to have focus all the time when you're traveling and exploring these things in these places. Okay, anything else about these ethers? And it'll change you. It'll alchemically transform you. Your energy will change. People will notice. Well, people that are open. Sometimes people that aren't open or pretend not to be open will notice on another level and not realize it. But in general, your energy will change. It'll be a good thing. There will be challenges. So as you're going up through the ethers, or down, depending, when you reach one or an area that's a personal blockage of yours, internally or externally or both, you're going to have some bumps in the road. You're going to have some trouble. You're going to have some difficulty. Now, it won't be insurmountable, obviously, or nobody would have done these, and I wouldn't have you folks doing this. But it'll happen. Every path happens. Every time you do alchemy, there will be bumps along the way, and since the way we're doing this, they will show up in your physical life. Now, it won't be crazy big stuff like losing your job. No, I doubt that. Unless it was like already nearly there and you saw it coming miles away, months away anyways. But it won't be stuff like that. It'll be more internal. It'll be more your thoughts, your fears. Your thoughts, your fears, stuff you haven't been looking at, stuff have been ignoring. It'll be more stuff like that that'll be getting you than physical. So it won't be huge physical changes, usually generally, and unless that's sort of what you want when you started. Which brings me to another point. For the Enochian Aethyr working, I recommend having a goal in mind for what you want to accomplish with these ethers. It could be some self-transformation. It could be some manifestation. But a clear goal, and if you cannot think of a specific goal, just spiritual growth is good. Transformation, growth, wisdom, connecting with the Enochian system more, things like that are good overall ones to choose. But just sort of having a background focus of what you desire, because you are changing yourself and going through these ethers, and if you have something in mind, it'll help direct the change instead of more random and chaotic change. So that's it for the ethers. Hope everybody enjoyed that one. Find the turn off button again.